Hi everyone, I'm Amy with you here on the last day of Libra. The video today is about the sun's ingress into the sign of Scorpio, which happens tomorrow, October 22nd, exact at 6 p.m. Central Time. The sun will be there in Scorpio from our perspective here on Earth until November 22nd. So I always think the sun's ingress into the sign is an introduction into this sign's energy. So everything I'm going to be bringing up today is just to get us in the Scorpio mood. Although I'm not wearing any Scorpio colors or having really any Scorpio symbols around me today. It's Wednesday, and I just thought with Mercury retrograde, I would kind of honor Mercury and the blue and the pastels with kind of the last hurrah of Libra. So I will get a little more Scorpionic in my wardrobe, although that could be a lot, so we'll see about that. But anyway, so Scorpio, starting tomorrow. I pulled from Martin Goldsmith's Sabian symbol book again this week for the degree. And that again is this statement, and then I'll read the description that he has that accompanies that phrase. So the Sabian symbol for this degree is a Chinese emperor interviews a barbarian princess. Finding her obstinate, he resorts to threats, whereupon she whistles, summoning a giant dragon, which flies down and alights beside her. The descriptive phrases are power struggles, shy diplomacy versus showing one's teeth, forcing a despot or a corrupt official out of power, standing up for one's side versus falling in with the dark force of betraying one's principles, being locked in an unending battle versus seeing the underlying unity of male-female, desire, fear, good, evil, creation, destruction. Dragonish musings on the paradoxes of the cosmos. Metaphysical imagination versus escapist fantasy. Hunger for fantastic adventure. Boldly examining a new scene. Getting one's mind around the full parameters of one's situation. Having the greater reality on one side. Forcing people to come to grips with something they'd rather not look at. And as I was printing out the things I wrote about for today, a statement just came into my head, which was, don't continue the drama. So I'm thinking that's kind of a good watch phrase for Scorpio, probably a good watch phrase kind of forever. But at any rate, that's one of the things that kind of popped into my head. Besides that, of course, with the mention of the dragon in that Sabian symbol, I brought the dragon card from Kim Krans's Animal Spirits deck. And for the dragon, Kim Krans writes, seeing one's most true self, balancing the ego. The dragon sees everything. Its essence has been with us since before our first breath and will be there at our last. It watches us navigate the external world as well as our inner world. When dragon energy is awakened, we are courageous, visionary, and can easily drop into witness consciousness. It is almost as if we are traveling with a great friend inside of ourselves. When we look in the mirror, deep into our eyes, we may even glimpse the self behind the self, the one who is watching us. This is the power of the dragon breathing transformative fire into every cell of our bodies. Witnessing this omnipotent energy, even for a brief moment, helps us surrender and let go. We let the dragon guide us. We hop on its back for a ride, and as we traverse even the most difficult terrain, the dragon's eyes see beauty everywhere. It is said that if a yogi does not see beauty in the world, their Agni is dim. Agni is described as the inner fire or sacred intelligence. May even just the mention of the dragon stir the embers of intelligence within you. She also writes, the dragon and the third chakra. The subtle energy of the dragon lives at the navel center in the Manipura chakra. Manipura translates to the city of hidden gems, and behind its gates burns the fire of our transformation as well as our digestion. The sages believe health of the fire at the navel center is what governs our ability to clearly see both the inner and outer dimensions. Those two paragraphs are just huge with Scorpio and Pluto energy. The regenerative, the transformative, the fire, the balancing of the ego, and seeing the beauty everywhere. When I said the don't continue the drama, and in the first statement, seeing that underlying unity are some of the things that Scorpio and Pluto are really calling us to do. It's really taking the lid off of everything and looking into all the contents and not judging, coming into that witness consciousness and just accepting, just seeing what's there. Okay, I'm going to continue on. The glyph for Scorpio is the scorpion, and I drew a little Scorpio glyph with the tail of the scorpion there, or you could see the tail of the dragon. This is the symbol of death and rebirth. Scorpio is. It's the symbol of regeneration and transformation. The ancients used the eagle for this sign, and some would say that if you transform the lower Scorpio, the scorpion, into its highest potential, it will soar like the eagle. The dragon, with its sharp pointed tail and its ability to fly, is another symbol. Again, kind of combining the eagle and the scorpion into the dragon. Another symbol that is very scorpionic is the phoenix. The phoenix has that death and rebirth. And the death and rebirth of Scorpio and the phoenix, again, is not a literal death necessarily. It is, again, that ability to transform and eliminate that which is no longer needed, so that one may transition into the next evolutionary step. So we all know how that feels, to get rid of things that are no longer useful. We've outgrown them, we've outworn them. It feels wonderful after the fact. In the process, it can be very painful. Scorpio is ruled by the planet Pluto, and I drew a glyph for Pluto. And I am using hot pink. Magenta is a color associated with Scorpio Pluto, that and black. So I decided to go with a little hot pink. So the glyph for Pluto, the planet, is the circle of spirit, encased in the mind, which is always the crescent, above the cross of matter. Alice O. Howell, another wonderful astrologer that I loved very dearly, loved her writing, she's passed on. She describes the symbol for Pluto as the circle of spirit, in the chalice of sacrifice. And I just love that description. In Scorpio, there is no time for skimming the surface of life. Scorpio allows us to dig deep into ourselves and mine our wealth of experience. These experiences are naked, soul-bearing, and soul-sharing in nature. They rely on a deep level of trust, as it is in and during these experiences that we are at our most vulnerable. I was going to say valuable, that too. Interestingly, the etymology of Pluto is from Latin, Pluto, Pluton from Greek, the god of wealth, literally wealth and riches, probably originally from overflowing, from the Proto-Indo-European plu, meaning to flow. The alternative Greek name is Hades in his function as the god of wealth. Precious metals and gems coming from beneath the earth form part of Hades' realm. Pluto was discovered in 1930. Physically, Pluto rules, Scorpio, well, Pluto and Scorpio, but Scorpio, we'll run back to that, rules processes of elimination and expulsion. And this can range anywhere from pimples to the excretory system to the birth process and any eliminatory process in between. Key words for Scorpio: energetic, fearless, frank, single-minded, penetrating, regenerative, and transformative. Shadow Scorpio: compulsive, manipulative, defensive, obsessive, caustic, cruel, discordant, desiring, excessive, sarcastic, suspicious, and vindictive. It sounds like I don't like Scorpio very much, but I love Scorpio. As I'm reading that super long list, I'm like, okay, but just some of the many faces of Scorpio. So you know what? I don't think Scorpio would mind me calling it out on those qualities as well. I think a good Scorpio would be like, yeah, sure, bring it. I got it. I see that. So it's the surface stuff that the Scorpio wouldn't like. And I say that and it's like, well, maybe not all Scorpios would like to be called on their, shadow sides, but I rather get a kick out of it. My Scorpio part of myself does. So physically, Scorpio rules, going to jump back into the bladder and the reproductive organs. Essential oils associated with Scorpio: sage, cedarwood, and sandalwood, all used for purification. Pennyroyal, which is warming and strengthening. And then jasmine and ylang ylang, I never know how to say that, for the female reproductive system. I also think those are both really sweet scents, so sometimes maybe just to sweeten up the Scorpio a bit, those might be good scents for that as well, as they are for the navel chakra, that Mars energy. So I've got a wonderful articulate quote from Adam Gainsburg, and I may have paraphrased it a bit, so I apologize if I have too much. So his take on Scorpio: Scorpio is the domain of consciousness, which involves effectively aligning one's will with the force of creation. Scorpio strives to transform those aspects of itself which prevent a deeper experience of itself. This will include those limitations, restrictions, repressions, obstructions, patterns, or habitual behaviors standing in its way. The limitations experienced emanate from within the self, and so the Scorpio mysteries revolve around learning this for oneself and how to transform them. Scorpio symbolizes the archetype of evolution itself. The Scorpio method of realizing one's blocks is through the experience of overwhelm and the dark night of the ego experience. Scorpio self-realization includes the experience of a far greater energy flowing through its circuits. It produces the experience of being far more greatly infused with life force itself. The individual becomes an agent of the force of creation. So there I redeemed my Scorpio a little bit with that lovely passage. Scorpio, or excuse me, now I'm going to jump into Pluto, the ruling planet. Pluto rules Tuesday along with Mars. Chicory is the Bach remedy we would associate with the sign of Scorpio, associated with and balancing to Scorpio. The musical key associated with Scorpio is D flat major or B flat minor. Those are relative. Took me a second there, my old music theory knowledge, long in the folds back there. Scorpio is the second water sign of the zodiac, Cancer being the first, and I always think of Cancer as lake water, Scorpio as river water, and Pisces as ocean water. Lake water being reflective, ocean water and Pisces being overwhelming and expansive and sometimes insidious. Scorpio as river water, always changing and transforming. Also, the 5 rivers of the underworld separate the underworld from the world of the living. I did not know until I started looking into Scorpio and Pluto that I had forgotten my mythology, that there are 5 rivers of the underworld. We always think of Styx, the river Styx, and that is the river of hate. Acheron is the river of woe. Cocytus is the river of lamentation, or lamentation. Phlegethon is the river of fire. Lethe is the river of forgiveness or forgetfulness. I like forgiveness, but it is forgetfulness. So Styx being the most well-known of these rivers. In mythology, oaths were sworn over the river Styx. And if the god or goddess, deity, didn't keep their word, Jupiter forced them to drink from the river itself. Apparently the river was so foul as to make the deity lose their voice for 9 years. So I guess if only we could dip into the river Styx every once in a while and have people in power take an oath upon that and stick with that. I was also thinking with these rivers of ghosts and spirits, which are also would be in the domain of Scorpio and the 8th house, which it's archetypically linked to, and how ghosts and spirits are attracted and attach themselves through strong emotions. And as I looked at those rivers of woe and lament and fire and forgetfulness and hate, and I was thinking forgetfulness more like a lack of mindfulness or forgetting one's divinity, being too human and being too full of human desires, such as anger and really strong emotions. So that is that, and it keeps going. I've got more. The gospel that is symbolically associated with the sign of Scorpio is the Gospel of John. So John's book, I highlighted a few things and it did not print as well as I thought. So John the Evangelist, his symbol was the eagle. So there we have that connection. And the 4 evangelists are linked symbolically to the 4 fixed signs. So Luke associated with the bull and Taurus, Mark associated with the lion and Leo, John associated with the eagle and Scorpio, Matthew associated with man and Aquarius. So basically, with John, it was more a Scorpio type of a gospel, a Scorpio reborn in transcendence and returning to the realm of eternity. Another theme was the profound meaning of sacrifice, the esoteric notion of death and rebirth, and nowhere else do we get more information about the Passion Week and its symbolic implications. Nowhere else does Jesus speak so extensively on the essential necessity of his sacrifice and the essentially Scorpion esoteric process of death and resurrection. And that passage was from astro.com. Brought another Kim Krans card today, and it is the Death card. And so this is the tarot card associated with Scorpio. And for this she wrote, closure and transformation. No one loves the sight of death in a reading. We spend most of our lives denying death altogether. So when this card appears, it's easy to get frightened or think it's bad. Don't let the drama distract you from the message. Something in your life needs to end. It needs closure. This will happen voluntarily or involuntarily. Either way, you will feel a positive transformation begin after the initial forms of suffering have passed. And then from another source, the book Meditations on the Tarot, anonymous, about the Death card in the tarot deck. For our whole experience, outer and inner, forgetting, sleep, and death are three manifestations of the same thing. Forgetting, sleep, and death, differing in degree, of a soul principle or force which affects the disappearance of intellectual, psychic, and physical phenomena. One forgets, one goes to sleep, and one dies. One remembers, one awakes, and one is born. Remembering is to forgetting, as awakening is to falling asleep. And awakening is to sleeping, as birth is to death. One forgets oneself when one goes to sleep, and one remembers oneself when one awakes. It is also the mechanism of forgetting which is at work when one dies, and it is the mechanism of remembering which is at work at birth. Just as the practice of concentration is the mastering of the art of forgetting, and the practice of profound communion or meditation is the mastering of the art of sleeping, so does the contemplation of authentic initiation signify the mastering of the art of dying. It is through mastering forgetting, sleep, and death that one arrived in the past, that one arrives today, and that one will arrive in the future, at the mystical experience of the soul united with Source, or One, God, unity, and therefore at the absolute certainty of immortality. And one arrived there, one arrives there, and one will arrive there through the three stages of the eternal mystical way, those of purification, illumination, and union. Wow, I should almost just stop right there. But there's more. No, I've just got a little bit more, but anyway, that was was beautiful. Another quote, which will be also beautiful, from Adam Gainsburg about the planet Pluto. Pluto function is to show us how we are personally disempowering ourselves. It exposes the subconscious pattern of assuming/believing that we are lacking in some fundamental way. I don't have it, I'm lacking, I'm not whole. Quote, end quote. Pluto is an initiator into empowerment. Power means an alignment with our own life force. Pluto symbolizes the urge to transform and regenerate and causes breakdowns which force us to face our perceived lack. Through facing the lack, we can begin to examine it, question it, and then allowing space and light to begin healing these aspects. Through this Plutonian process, we are able to access the latent power and energy within us. All right. We are nearing our end of notes here. I have more. This is kind of the way I operate. I tend to, it's squirrel energy, thus the Mercurius being. I like to gather a lot of information, and from all of that different information and from all of these sources and traditions and experiences, or literally what pops into my head or what song might pop into my head, that's what I come up with. That's what I put into my Scorpionic cauldron, I shall call it this month. A couple last things before I go, just to have the whole introduction for the month set up. And I know I'll be on Instagram, and I'll be back with other YouTube videos with some yogic practices and breathing practices and sound healing practices, which will align with the associations for this month. But like I said, I'm just kind of planting these seeds for you to think about, and then for you to go on and build your own little Scorpionic cauldron of information, because you'll have your own experience with all of these things and with all of these symbols. And that's what's valid. I consider myself at my best when I'm just sharing what I find interesting and what is exciting for me. And I really invite you, I'm by no means, the end word on anything. I was going to make a marriage joke there, but anyway. So this is just an introduction for you to take this information and go crazy with it. Transform, how about that? That's a little better. Transform with it. Regenerate. Become like a phoenix with it. The Hebrew letter, I'll change subjects here. The Hebrew letter associated with Pluto is Shin. Shin begins the word for two, and I'm not going to try to read that in Hebrew. This is from Edward Hoffman's Kabbalah deck, by the way. Shin reveals, this is paraphrased as well, reveals that for completion to occur, we must overcome dualities in our thinking. The world as we know it is still moving toward wholeness. Thus, a 13th century text known as the Book of the Image teaches that one letter is currently missing from the Hebrew alphabet. Every apparent defect or error that we see in the universe is mysteriously linked to this missing consonant, which will become manifest in the future. Some Jewish mystics suggest that this unknown letter is a shin with 4 prongs. And so you can see the letter shin has the 3 prongs. And as I was preparing all of this, I kept thinking of, I always think of the breath, and I think of other yogic practices to bring into this. And I think of birth, inhalation. I think of death, exhalation. And then you have birth, inhalation, pause, death, exhalation, pause. So really 4 parts of the breath. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. 2 of which are the same, so we end up with 3. So as I was looking up the 4 evangelists, the phrase canon of 4 came in. And then we have the Trinity, which is 3. So in Jewish mysticism, the name of God, the tetragrammaton, is YHVH, or Yodha Vadha, Vavha, excuse me, the 4-letter word. So we have 4 letters, YHVH, 2 of which are the same. So we have the 4 into the 3. So I was thinking of trining the square. In astrology, the square is conflict, and the trine is a harmonious flow. So that's kind of my little riff on the 4 and the 3 and the 12, which has so many symbolic associations, thus the 12 signs of the Zodiac, the 12 labors of Hercules, the 12 disciples, my last little bit, so we'll be returning to breath practices in other videos and again on my Instagram channel. So I will leave you with that little breath thought. And my last thing I will bring is the Kim Krans, once again, the Wild Unknown Tarot is the name of her deck. And this is one of my absolutely favorite cards from that deck. And it is associated with Pluto, and it's called Judgment. So for this, she writes, forgiveness. The word judgment conjures up fear and guilt in many people. This card, however, concerns itself with another aspect of this word, seeking the truth. No more blaming yourself or others. No more excuses. Now is the time for forgiveness and personal freedom. This card asks you to rise up and let pettiness and fear fall below you. Expand your wings and be reborn. What a relief it will be. All right, there you have it. Our big Scorpio introduction for the month. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon.